Hello students, water is a basic need for all of us, and when we are considering our basic needs, then it is important that how we get water at our home. Yes, maybe from tap water. And when we are considering about the rural areas, then in rural areas what is going on, students? Sometimes hand pumps are there, sometimes with the help of the sprinkler system they water their fields also. So when we are considering about the public facilities, then it is important that we will consider about the public facilities, by whom all these public facilities are given, by the private sector or by the government sector. Yes, this one is the important thing here. Bindu Chaudhary is with you in your social science class, and we are continuing our unit 5th. Unit 5th is economic presence of the government. When we are saying that presence of the government and in the economic presence of the government, then it is important to study about the role of the government, as we discussed in our previous parts about the role of the government, how in different public sectors government is providing and facilitating many facilities to the citizens of India. And when we are considering about the water facility, when we are considering about the electricity facility, schools, colleges, government hospitals and many more, then all these are governed by the government. When we are considering all these things, literally students, we also notice that even private sectors also interfere in the new colleges, new schools and hospitals, but not in other sectors. What's the reason behind it? Because they want to earn their profit from all these things. But as per we are concerning about the government don't want any type of profit, because all these are for the facilitation of the citizen. Then one question arises here, how is the income of the government, and what's the important factors to affiliate the expenditure and the income statement of the government. And when we are taking the budget section here, then it is in a clear cut mind to all of us that all these are going on with the help of the taxes. Yes, different taxes imposed on the employers and employees, and what about the different sectors of the market, all are influenced with the favor of taxes there. So with the help of the taxes, government earn their income and expend that one in our public facilities. So this concept is totally clear in your mind. So let's start today's part 3rd of chapter 9, public facilities, water supply in Chennai. Because we are considering an example of Chennai here, Amu and Kumar, they are going in a bus and they searched out different colonies, maybe sometimes posh colonies, maybe sometimes slum hunt areas, and sometimes flats areas also. Okay, when we consider all these things, we discuss this all in our part 1st. So today in part 3rd we will discuss about the water supply to Chennai. Is it available to all? The main question arises here, is it available to all? As we discussed about the conditions of the Chennai, it is totally not available to all. So when we are considering about the public facilities, then the main thing is water is a public facility, and what is the expectation by us and what is the reality going on, as discussed in our part 1st. Yes, Amu and Kumar situation, they were going on a bus, and on that time they searched out different parts of Chennai. And so the expectations are very much, but when we are considering about the reality portion, then its versus a different mean. Okay, so there is a great shortage of such facilities. Not only water facilities, but overall when we are considering about the public facilities, many shortages are there. And when we are considering about the shortages, then let us see the provisions of public facilities with reference to water. जब हम सिर्फ पानी फैसिलिटी की बात कर रहे हैं, पानी की जो पब्लिक फैसिलिटी है उसकी बात कर रहे हैं, तो आज हम इस चैप्टर में पब्लिक फैसिलिटी के रूप में सिर्फ और सिर्फ पानी के लिए ही बात करेंगे. एंड सी द कंडीशंस वेयर देयर इज नो डाउट दैट पब्लिक फैसिलिटीज शुड बी मेड अवेलेबल टू ऑल. in reality what's going on when we are saying that expectations are different thing and when we are saying that reality is a different thing. So in reality we see that there is a great shortage of such facilities. Yes, totally a different kind of situation, expectations versus reality. In reality there is a great shortage of public facilities. When we are considering about all these things, students, one thing more in the rest of this chapter we will read about the provisions of the water, which as we have seen is a public facility of a great importance. When we are considering about this one, remember our previous part 2nd, and in that one we studied about the Constitution's article 21, and in that article we studied about the facilities, yes, right to life, and in this right to life, right to health, right to water and other things are included. And when we are considering about article 21, then this is the main important thing for the citizens and provided by the government to facilitate the citizens. When we are considering about the situations in Chennai, water supply in Chennai, we will consider some main points here marked by shortages. It means when every situation is going on and every situation is studied by the persons, then what's the result here? The main result occurred that marked by the shortages. It means lots of shortages of water facilities are there. Municipal supply meets only and only about the half of the needs of the people of the city. अब हम क्या देखते हैं बच्चों, जो म्यूनिसिपल बोर्ड है जो कि चेन्नई में वाटर सप्लाई का काम करते हैं, वहाँ पे तो सिचुएशन टोटली डिफरेंट है. वो तो सिर्फ हाफ ऑफ द जो नीड है, पानी की जितनी नीड है उसका सिर्फ आधा पोर्शन ही सप्लाई कर रहे हैं. There are areas which get water more regularly than others. But what's the situation we studied in our part 1st, student, about Ram Gopal's colony? What's the condition there, student? Yes, in some colonies water supply is regularly more than the other portions of the cities in Chennai. So this one is the main cause here. And when we are considering that who gets what, किसको कितना मिलना चाहिए, maybe it's water facility, maybe it's electricity facility, or schools, colleges, hospitals, or etc. and etc. So we are considering about who gets what. In this one we will consider about the burden of shortfalls in water supply falls mostly on the पुअर. सी द सिचुएशन, जब हम गरीब लोगों की बात करते हैं, इट मीन्स हम स्लम एरिया की बात कर रहे हैं, देन हु सफर्ड अ लॉट? स्लम एरियाज पीपल सफर्ड अ लॉट एज वी स्टडीड अबाउट द पद्माज, Sadyapad, and the portions they are living in. Okay, when we are considering about the less supply or shortfalls only and only in the poor area, then what about the middle class students? Middle class, when faced with water shortages, are able to cope through a variety of private means such as digging bore wells. See the conditions here of the middle class families. They got digging bore wells, buying water from tankers and using bottled waters for drinking. So these are the main things which are done by the मिडल क्लास फैमिली मेम्बर्स. तो हम यहाँ पे जो उठा पटक देख रहे हैं, पुअर पीपल्स, मिडिल क्लास पीपल एनी हाउ अरेंज वाटर फॉर देमसेल्व्स, वेदर दे wanted tankers, whether they digging the bore wells or with the water bottles, drinking facilities. So they by any means available water to themselves, but not the poor ones. So अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ वाटर वर्सेज एक्सेस टू सेफ ड्रिंकिंग वाटर. अब यहाँ पे दो चीज़ों की आपस में कंपैरिजन हो रहा है. व्हाट्स द फर्स्ट वन? First one is the availability of water. When we are considering that most of our human body mixed by the water. Second thing, when we are considering about the world, what's the situation going on earth? Near about 60 to 70% water is there, but is that safe drinking water? We will assess that one in safe drinking water or not. Availability is totally a different thing, and access to safe drinking water is totally a different thing. So we will study here. The wealthy have more choices. It means when we are considering about the rich people have many choices thanks to the booming market in bottled water and water purifiers. Yes, it is only by the poor peoples. Yes or not? Totally not, students. This is all by the wealthy or rich peoples. From them the market of bottled water and the water purifiers grown up in a high peak. Why grown up in a high peak? Because of their symbol of the society. They needed all these things कि घर में बहुत पानी है, but we need water purifiers water, or we will need about the bottled water. And in sometimes when you are going on in trains, in buses, you also search out that many people are buying bottled water, maybe in the 15 to 20 rupees, and sometimes it is cost 30 rupees. So this one is the situation of the water bottled facilities. When we are considering about poor, then what's the condition of the poor here? Whereas the poor are again left out, because they have not that much of money to buy bottled water as Shiva is buying, but not Padma is buying, है ना. तो different conditions are there when we are literally speaking in reality. Therefore it seems that it is only people with money who have the right to water. A far cry from the goal of universal access to sufficient and safe water. When we are considering about the far cry, see the situation behind it. जब आप ये देखें कि कहीं पे ऐसी कॉलोनी है where lots of people are living there and very shortage of water is there in 4 days, in 5 days, or maybe sometimes with 20 minutes in the morning time and with the help of the hand pumps, and 20 minutes in the evening time, twice a day. And what's the situation? All these things going on, from all these situations, what's happened? The poor people suffered a lot. And when we are considering about the real portion, what's the money peoples or the rich peoples do? They have the right to water because they have sufficient money, they have sufficient power, they have sufficient approach to the municipal board or to the other governed by the facilitating members. Okay, so this one is the real situation of the drinking water and the availability of the water. When we are considering these two things, students, in search of alternatives we will go. Yes, many times not only sufficient water is there, then what's the alternate? Is there any alternate for this one? We will study here. First one, Chennai is just an example. Yes, when we are considering about Chennai is just an example we are taking here, and the situation in Chennai is not a unique one as the other states have also going on. A similar scenario of shortages and acute crisis during the summer months is common to other cities of India. So this one, summer month situation, very critical situation for the supply of water, because sometimes in the night near about 12:30, near about 1, or sometimes in the morning times the water supply is there. But it is not possible to everyone to handle these types of situations. So in summer months the supply of water becomes so much minimized, and the citizens, the peoples are not getting that much of water which is sufficient for their daily use. But again we are saying here that the rich people have no problem at all. Sufficient water supply is there to all of them. The shortage in municipal water is increasingly being filled by an expansion of private companies who are selling water for profit. अब आप यहाँ पे रियल सिचुएशन समझिए बच्चों, हो क्या रहा है? हो रहा है कि म्यूनिसिपल जो वाटर सप्लाई बोर्ड है, दे आर सप्लाइंग वाटर बट नॉट इन अ प्रॉपर वे और नॉट इन अ fixed amount of the water is there. But what's the again the different situation is here. Public sector peoples are earning high profits by selling water by the tankers or by the other ways. So this one is the real situation of the societies of the countries. Okay. Also common are the great inequalities in water use. Yes, not only in other public facilities but use of water. When we are considering this one also, then the commoners suffered a lot from this efficiency. So more important when we are going on and abbreviating our chapter, the supply of water per person in an urban area in India should be about 135 liters per day. It means what is the sufficient amount for the peoples in the urban areas. It is near about 7 buckets a day. एक दिन में कितना पानी चाहिए? एक दिन में near about 135 liters or we will call that 7 buckets are necessary. A standard set up by the Urban Water Commission. Who set up all these criteria in the urban areas? All these criteria are set by the Urban Water Commission, and this is the fixed criteria for the supply of water. 135 liter per day, or we will say 7 buckets in a day. But what's the problem? Is this going on in a smooth way? No, this one is not going on in a smooth way. Many crises are there, and when we are considering about the crisis, then again the situations of our part first is handling here, because many problems are there we are considering here. Whereas people in slums have to make do with less than 20 liters a day per person. It means what's the criteria here? Only and only 1 bucket. एक तरफ हम देख रहे हैं अर्बन एरियाज में 135 लीटर चाहिए, बट व्हाट्स अबाउट द स्लम एरियाज? ओनली 20 लीटर. इट मीन्स 7 and 1 रेशियो. 7 and जब उनको 7 बकेट पानी दिया जा रहा है तो इनको सिर्फ 1 बकेट पानी की सप्लाई की जा रही है. तो यहाँ पे आप कंडीशंस देखिए, प्रॉब्लम्स देखिए विद द स्लम पीपल्स. People living in luxury hotels may consume as much as 1600 liters, or we will say 80 buckets of water per day. Situations of the luxury hotels are here, and one by one we are considering about the main necessity of the per person water supply. Then see the conditions in hotels, luxury hotels near about 1600 liters, or what we will say 80 बाल्टी पानी जो है वो पर डे सप्लाई किया जाता है, या हम ये कह सकते हैं सप्लाई कितना भी किया जाता है, उनका जो कंजप्शन है वह है 1600 लीटर्स का है. सो दिस वन इज द क्रिटिकल सिचुएशन हेयर. अ शॉर्टेज ऑफ म्यूनिसिपल वाटर इज ऑफन टेकन एज अ sign of failure of the government. When we are considering about the public facilities, when we are considering about the water facilities, then what's the real condition? The real condition is this one, that municipal water is totally fail. This municipal board is totally fail in supplying the proper units, proper liters of water in a country, or when we are considering about the state and we are considering about the one district, then this one is the real situation. And when Chennai's condition is this one, then what's about the other states conditions? Because lots of people in a country suffered, because lots of people lives in a slum areas. some people argue that since the government is unable to supply the amount of water that is needed and many of the municipal water departments are running at a very loss, we should allow private companies to take over the task of water supply. This is the real situation, students. The crisis regularly going on, and with that crisis some people argues. What's the argument behind there? The argument is that our government body is totally unable to supply the sufficient amount of water. Students, here people argues that private sectors will be allowed to task of water supplies because they have a very systematic framework for all these things. When we are considering about the government versus private sector, then we will consider the following facts here. The first fact is, throughout the world वाटर सप्लाई इज़ अ फंक्शन ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. जब हम सिर्फ इंडिया की नहीं ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड की बात कर रहे हैं बच्चों, व्हाट्स द रियल सिचुएशन? मोस्ट ऑफ द वाटर सप्लाई इज़ अ फंक्शन governed by the government. There are very few instances of private water supplies, only water tankers and sometimes other. But in a real situation in all over the world, what's the real situation? That only and only government is supplying the water. Next point we are considering here, there are areas in the world where public water supply has achieved universal access. Yes, in most of the areas in the world, when we are considering about the situation of the public versus private, then what's the condition here? Public water supply has achieved universal access. It means in a very proper way water supplying facilities are going on. We are considering about the third point. In third point, in a few cases what's happened, where the responsibilities of water supply was handed over to private companies, there was a steep rise in the price of water, making it unaffordable for many. The real situation by the government supply, no raising of amount is there, but when it is handed over to the private sector, what's the real situation here? The real situation is the uprising price of water, and this uprising price of water is not in a proper way. Why? Because in that condition it is unaffordable by many other persons of the country. When we are considering all these things, then what's the conclusion we are going on? Cities saw huge protests. For what? Cities saw huge protests with riots breaking out in places like Bolivia, forcing the government to take back the service from private hand. जब हम क्या देखते हैं कि बोलिविया में क्या किया था वहाँ की गवर्नमेंट ने, they handed over water facilities, water supply facilities to the private hands, and on that time what happened? The riots breaking out in places and they protested long for this one. That's why it's not possible to hand over to the private sector. When we are considering about the next point here, within India, when we are considering about India, what's the real situation? The real situation is there are cases of success in government water departments, though these are few in number and limited to certain areas of their work. It's okay, success by the government in water supply is there, but not in a maximum way. Only a few in numbers successes are there, and only in a limited way, limited areas there is a success of water supply. This is the main thing we are considering about the government sector's water supply and the private sector's water supply facilities. When we are considering about all these things, the water supply department in Mumbai, you see the situation here, we are considering about Chennai as well as we are considering about Mumbai's water supply situation, raises enough money through water charges. See, raises enough money to water charges to cover its expenses on supplying water. It means in Mumbai it is so much difficult for the slum areas people to live or to survive. Why it is difficult, students? Because the prices are so much high. So in Hyderabad situation, in Hyderabad totally different situation is there. A report shows that the department has increased coverage and improved performance in revenue collection. See the conditions in Mumbai, see the conditions in Hyderabad. In these two cities, what's going on? The prices are raising high and high, and all these are the purpose for the revenue collection. When we are considering about the revenue collection, it means a high price is there, and when we are considering about the high price, then what's the situation going on? Most of the people unafford the water. Okay, when we are again considering about Chennai, in Chennai the department has taken several initiatives for harvesting rainwater. This is the main example of using rainwater because of the harvesting rains water system to increase the level of groundwater. What's in this situation going on in Chennai? हम क्या देखते हैं, सबसे ज़्यादा क्या होता है, जो बारिश का पानी है उसको बचाया जाता है, अंडरग्राउंड जो बना दिए जाते हैं, पूरा वाटर टैंक बना दिए जाते हैं, एंड फ्रॉम दैट द पाइप्स आर कनेक्टेड विद द रूफ टॉप्स, एंड व्हेन द वाटर इज कमिंग from that one, they harvest the rainwater and they use this water with the supplies purpose. So groundwater is the main thing, and when with the help of the harvesting rainwater the level of the groundwater is raising high, then the situations are not that much of critical as the other cities are. When we are considering all these things, one more point is here. It has also used the services of private companies for transporting and distributing water. But when we are considering about the government water supply department decides the rate for water tankers and gives them permission to operate. Hence, they are called on contractual basis. This is the real situation in Chennai, that with the help of the harvesting rainwater, they increase the level of groundwater. Okay, this concept is clear in your mind. Then we are considering about the next point here. The next point is the services of the private companies for the purpose of transporting and distributing water. But what's the reality going on? The government water supply department decides the rates of the water tankers. Why? Because the private sectors are raising high and high money of the water supply tankers, but the government stopped all their policies and fixed the rates of the water tankers, and only on that condition they give them permission to operate and supply water to the other peoples, and all these things are on contract. It means ठेके पे दिया जाता है, but all the norms are regulating by the government, not by the public or private sector. So this is the main situation we are considering here about the conditions of Chennai. So when we are considering the differentiate chart between Hyderabad, between Mumbai, between Chennai, what's going on here? The real situation is the betterment, best of the best city is Chennai for the purpose of the supplying of water. In the end of the chapter, we are concluding the chapter, and in conclusion, we studied about in whole of the chapter what, students? We studied about the public facilities, and in public facilities we studied many types of public facilities as water, electricity, hospitals, schools, colleges, and etc. etc. But in this chapter we are especially considering about the water public facilities, and in this one we are considering about Chennai, and in Chennai we consider about the better way of approaching waters to all of the people. When we are considering this water facility, public facility, and relate to this to our basic needs, we considered about the right to life article 21, and in this one the concept is totally clear in your mind about the right to life. It means in right to life it is necessary that right to water is there, right to health is there, right to education is there, and for all these things government is taking initiative for the betterment and for the better lives of the people. So in the next we will consider about the one of the major roles of the government is what, students? The main role of the government is to ensure adequate public facilities for everyone. See the situation here, government की क्या इच्छा शक्ति है? Under the constitution, right to life act, government also wants to willing that all the proper public facilities are given to everyone, and there is a shortage in supply and there are inequalities in distribution. It's okay, this one is the government's duty and government is bearing its duty, but what's the conditions? What's in reality? In reality, totally different position is there, shortage of water supply is there, and all these things are the inequalities in distribution. कहीं पे पॉश कॉलोनी में भी बहुत ज़्यादा सप्लाई किया जा रहा है, पूरे दिन वाटर वहाँ पे चल रहा है, एंड कहाँ स्लम एरियाज़ में और बाकी एरियाज़ में क्या हो रहा है, क्वांटिटी धीरे धीरे लो करते जा रहे हैं, और जब हम देखते हैं क्वांटिटी लो कर दिया उनका जो सप्लाई ऑफ वाटर है, डिमांड और सप्लाई का जो अपना नियम है उससे टोटली डिफ़र कर दिया है. दैट्स द मेन रीज़न ऑफ द शॉर्टेज ऑफ वाटर सप्लाई हेयर. व्हेन वी आर कंपेयरिंग टू द मेट्रोज एंड लार्ज सिटीज़, व्हाट्स द सिचुएशन? कंपेयर टू द मेट्रोज एंड लार्ज सिटीज़, टाउन्स एंड विलेजेस are under provided. Yes, in metro cities and in large cities the supply of water is in a proper way, but what about the condition of the towns and villages? Totally not in favor of the peoples because it is under provided. And when we are comparing the situations compared to wealthy localities, the poorer localities are under service. एक सिचुएशन हमने देखी बड़े शहरों की और छोटे शहरों की. बड़े शहरों में प्रॉपर पानी दिया जा रहा है, छोटे शहरों में नहीं दिया रहा. दूसरी सिचुएशन हमने चेन्नई की देखी कि एक ही शहर में क्या हो रहा है, एक ही सिटी में जो अच्छी कॉलोनीज़ है, अच्छी कॉलोनीज इट मीन्स वेल्दी लोकेलिटीज़ है, वहाँ पे एडुकेट वाटर सप्लाई किया जा रहा है. बट व्हेन वी आर कंसिडरिंग अबाउट द पुअर लोकेलिटीज़, not in a proper way water supply is there and it is under serviced. It means not as applicable rules of the government or the water commission. Overall, handing over these facilities to private companies may not be the answer of any question. It means it is not in a proper way that government handed over the water supply facilities to the private companies and sectors, because this is not the proper way as we studied the condition of Bolivia. Okay. Any solution needs to take account of the important fact that every citizen of the country has a right. What's right? Right to these facilities which should be provided to him or her in an equitable manners. हम कितना भी कह दें इम्प्रॉपर हो रहा है, सही सप्लाई नहीं हो रही है, प्रॉपर क्वांटिटी नहीं दिया जा रहा है, बट व्हाट्स द रियल कंडीशन? द रियल कंडीशन इज दैट राइट टू लाइफ, अंडर द प्रोविजन राइट टू लाइफ एक्ट, व्हाट्स द important thing in mentioned by the constitution? It is mentioned that the facilities should be provided to him or her without any gender discrimination and in equitable manner. It means in a proper manner water supply is there. Students, we read about the chapter mainly about the public facilities, and in this public facilities mainly we consider Chennai water supply system, and in that one we studied a lot about the government sectors, private sectors. We studied a lot about the situations going on in the slum areas and the sufferings by the middle class family members also. It's okay, they are in a position to acquire water bottles, tankers, but that is not also a proper way of supplying water facilities. So first thing is to preserve the water. Second thing is that we minimize the consumption of water in our day to day life. Third thing is we will save, reuse, recycle the water facilities. So this is our important chapter, and in our next part we will study question answer sessions. So stay with us. Have a nice day.